Hi there. Have you ever had one of those Monday mornings where you wake up and think, why am I still doing this? Not because you're lazy, not because you can't do the job, but because deep down you've started asking a more serious question. Could I retire now? And if you're in your 40s, 50s, or early 60s, that question can start to become louder. At some point, retirement stops being a vague someday idea and starts becoming a real decision. And that decision is hard for one reason. Working one more year usually does help the math. One more year of savings helps. One more year of health insurance helps. One more year of income helps. But one more year also costs you something. It's one more year of your time, one more year of your energy, one more year of your freedom. One more year you do not get back. So how do you know when it's actually time? In this video, I want to walk you through 6 questions. And if you can honestly answer yes to all 6, there's a very good chance you're closer to retirement than you think. These are not hype questions. They're not fantasy questions. They're not based on the idea that retirement is one big permanent vacation. They're the real questions that help you figure out whether you're truly ready to make the jump, and they're coming from the experience of someone who's retired early, me. So let's start with question number 1. Are you postponing the life you actually want? A lot of people build their entire working life around one quiet assumption. I'll live later. Later I'll travel. Later I'll slow down. Later I'll take better care of myself. Later I'll spend more time with the people I love. Later I'll finally get around to the things I keep saying matter to me. But later has a way of staying later. And one of the biggest risks in life is not just running out of money, it's running out of healthy years, energy, or desire before you even get around to the life you keep telling yourself you'll live someday. Now, I'm not saying everybody should quit work tomorrow and go chase some dramatic bucket list life. Some people have built a pretty good balance already. They still work, but they also travel. They still work, but they protect time for family. They still work, but life already feels reasonably well-rounded. If that's you, great. But if you've been telling yourself for years that your real life starts later, that's something you really need to pay attention to. Because retirement is not just a financial decision, it's a life decision. And if you already have enough to make a change, then working longer may not actually be the better choice. It may just be the more familiar one. So if your answer to that first question, whether you're postponing the life you actually want, is yes, let's go to question number 2. Is your job taking a real toll on your health? This one can matter a lot, and it definitely did for me, and it's one of the main reasons I chose to retire early. A lot of people think about retirement readiness almost entirely in terms of money, but your health should be part of the equation too. And if your job is slowly draining your health, it really matters. Maybe it's stress. Maybe your blood pressure is higher than it should be. Maybe you're not sleeping well, perhaps from all the job stress. Or maybe you just sit too much, move too little, eat worse than you want to, and never seem to have enough energy left to fix any of it. Maybe you're always tense, irritable, exhausted, or mentally fried. And sometimes it shows up in smaller ways that are easy to normalize. You're always tired, your back hurts, you dread Monday before Sunday is even over. That was me. You're technically home at night, but mentally you're still at work. You tell yourself this is temporary. You tell yourself everybody lives like this. You tell yourself you just need to hang on a little longer. But if your job is actively making your health worse, that has to count in the retirement decision. Because what's the point of preserving your finances if the cost is your health? So much so, by the time you do retire, the years of stress and not eating right or exercising as you should creates health problems that prevent you from fully enjoying it. And to be clear, I'm not saying retirement magically fixes every health problem. Of course it doesn't. But if leaving work will give you back time to sleep better, move more, get outside, reduce stress, eat better food, and actually put some energy into your well-being, that has real value. So if your answer to that question, whether your job is taking a real toll on your health, is yes, let's go to question number 3. Have you already outgrown this stage of your career? This is different from simply being annoyed at work. Everybody has bad days. Everybody has frustrating coworkers, pointless and unnecessary meetings, and weeks where they'd rather be doing, well, just about anything else. That by itself doesn't mean you should retire, but sometimes the deeper issue is that the role you're in no longer fits the person you are. You've done the ladder climbing, you've played the game, you've built the career, you've hit the career milestones, and now you look around and think, I'm not sure I want to keep spending so much of my life doing this anymore. That doesn't mean you failed. If anything, it may mean you succeeded. You got what the career was supposed to provide: income, experience, stability, maybe status. And now the question becomes whether continuing still makes sense for the life you want from here. Some people can solve that by scaling back at work. Maybe they go part-time. Maybe they can consult. Maybe they can reduce responsibility. Maybe they can create a glide path instead of a hard stop. But a lot of people can't. Their job is all or nothing. Their company doesn't really do flexibility. Their role only works if they stay fully engaged, and if that's the case, then hanging on may just mean extending a chapter of life that already feels complete. So if your answer to that question, whether you've outgrown the stage of your career, is yes, let's go to question number 4. Do you want more time with the people you love while you can still enjoy it? This one hits hard because it's one of the things we value most in life. Time with the people you care about is one of those things that sounds obvious until you realize how much of it work has quietly consumed. You miss random weekday lunches with your spouse or partner. You miss flexibility. You miss being able to show up without checking your calendar first. You miss that ordinary time with your loved ones that means so much and makes such a difference in your life. And honestly, ordinary time is often the good stuff, not the weddings, graduations, and big holidays. I mean the random Tuesday coffee with a friend, that afternoon with your spouse, the chance to help aging parents, the ability to see your adult kids more often, the freedom to just be available. A lot of people assume they'll make up for that later, but later doesn't always cooperate. Parents age, friends move, grandkids grow, health changes, family circumstances shift. And one of the hardest truths about this stage of life is that money can often be recovered. Time usually can't. So if you deeply want more time with your spouse, your family, or the people who matter most to you, not someday, but now, that deserves real weight in this decision. So if your answer to that question, whether you want more time with the people you love while you can still enjoy it, is yes, let's go to question number 5. Do you know what you're retiring to? This is a question a lot of people don't seriously think about before they retire. Of course, they know what they want to retire from. That's easy because it's the most familiar to them. They want to retire from the job, the stress, the schedule, the commute, the office politics, the endless meetings, the deadlines. But that's not the same as knowing what you're retiring to. And that distinction matters because retirement isn't just the removal of work. It's the removal of structure too. For decades, work has shaped your days. It has given you a schedule, a role, a reason to get up, and in many cases, a big part of your identity. So when work goes away, it's not enough to just assume everything will somehow fall into place. And you really want to think this through ahead of time. This doesn't mean you need some perfect master plan. You don't need your next 20 years mapped out in a spreadsheet, but you should have a real answer to this question. What am I going to do with this life I'm trying to get back? Maybe it's travel, maybe it's exercise and health, maybe it's hobbies, volunteering, creative work, gardening, family time, part-time work, or side business. Maybe it's simply slower mornings and enjoying a cup of coffee on your patio and less stress. The point is not that retirement has to look productive. The point is that it should feel intentional, because if you go into retirement with no sense of purpose, rhythm, interest, or direction, that freedom can turn on you faster than you expect. At first, retirement feels like a permanent vacation, and for a little while, that feels great. But that honeymoon phase can wear off, and when it does, boredom, restlessness, and regret can start creeping in. That's when you start to feel lost. You miss the structure. You miss feeling useful. You miss knowing who you are without the job. And in some cases, you start wondering if retiring was a mistake. Retirement can be wonderful. Believe me, I know, and I have zero regrets. But a big reason I feel this way is because I went into it knowing what I was going to do with this next chapter of my life, not just what I was escaping from. You need to do that too. Please, please don't discount this. This is something you have to think about. Don't just plan the exit. Plan what comes after the exit too. So if your answer to that question, whether you know what you're retiring to, is yes, let's go to the last question. Have you run the numbers well enough to trust the decision? This is the question that keeps everything grounded because you can answer yes to the first 5 questions and still not be ready. You may want retirement badly. You may be burned out. You may want your time back. You may have a clear vision for what comes next. But if the numbers don't support it, then you're not making a confident or correct decision. You're just making a hopeful one. And those are not the same. Now, this doesn't mean you need certainty. You're never going to have certainty. There's no such thing as a guaranteed retirement. What you do need is enough clarity to trust your plan. That means you've gone beyond just looking at your retirement nest egg and saying, yeah, I think we're probably fine. You've actually looked at all the moving parts. You've estimated your retirement spending needs and you have a plan for where the income will come from. You've thought about taxes. You've thought about health insurance. You've thought about what happens if the market drops early. You've thought about how much cash you want on hand so you're not forced to sell in a market downturn to fund retirement. In other words, you've pressure tested the plan. Not perfectly, but honestly. And this matters because retirement is a lot easier to enjoy when you're not constantly worrying about money and if your plan is going to work. That is something you don't want, believe me. You want to be able to leave work knowing your plan may not be perfect, but it's solid. That you looked at the weak spots, that you understand the trade-offs, that you know what could go wrong and what you would do if it does. And if you haven't done that yet, this is where the work is. You can do this yourself. A lot of people do. With spreadsheets, calculators, and enough time, you can build a pretty good retirement plan on your own. I'll also mention the tool I personally use because it really helped me solidify my retirement plan, and I still use it now to keep track of things as life changes, and that's Bolden. It helped me model the moving parts, test it against what-if scenarios, even crazy ones, to see how the plan held together, which made me really confident in my decision, knowing that I'd be fine no matter what happens. If you want to check it out, I've got a link to it in the description. But whether you use spreadsheets, Bolden, or some other tool, the point is to actually do the planning. And if you want help, get help. Talk to a CFP if you want professional guidance and a second set of eyes on your plan. That certainly doesn't hurt and is usually well worth the money. And if you want to hear from and get answers to questions about really anything with retirement from someone who is actually retired early and is living it, consider joining my Patreon too. I've got 3 different levels, so there is sure to be a level that fits your needs and budget. At one level, you get access to my growing tools library, where I usually create at least one tool for each YouTube or podcast topic I cover. And for this video, I've created a retirement readiness scorecard based on these 6 questions, so you can actually work through them for yourself and see where you stand. At another level, you get early access and ad-free listening to all of my podcast episodes, plus the tools. And at the top tier, you can ask me your questions directly about early retirement, along with everything else that comes with the lower levels. So if you want this extra help, I've got a link to my Patreon in the description. But one way or another, don't skip this part because retirement should feel freeing, not reckless. And the goal is not to have zero uncertainty. The goal is to have enough confidence in the plan that you can finally stop circling the decision and move forward. And that brings us back to the real question. Have you run the numbers well enough to trust the decision? So let's recap. If you can answer yes to these 6 questions, Are you postponing the life you actually want? Is your job taking a real toll on your health? Have you already outgrown this stage of your career? Do you want more time with the people you love while you can still enjoy it? Do you know what you're retiring to? Have you run the numbers well enough to trust the decision? Then you are a lot closer to retirement than you think, and you really need to consider it. And really, answering yes to these 6 questions is the goal here. Not answering yes to 2 or 3 of these, not even answering yes to most of them. If you want to feel truly ready to seriously think about retiring, you really want to be able to answer yes to all 6 of them. That doesn't automatically mean you should hand in your notice tomorrow, but it does mean this. If the life case is there and the money case is there, what keeps many people stuck is often not the math. It's fear. Fear of making the jump, fear of losing structure, fear of leaving behind a familiar identity, fear that maybe one more year will somehow make everything feel safer than it really will. And sometimes one more year does make sense, but sometimes one more year is just the price you pay for not trusting the answer you already have and know in your heart. If this video helped you think more clearly about your own retirement decision, let me know in the comments. Which of these 6 questions is hardest for you to answer yes to right now? Or maybe you can answer yes to all 6 of the questions but are still hesitant. If so, why? And if you want help thinking through the practical side of retirement too, things like taxes, health insurance, cash flow, and how to build a more resilient plan, make sure you subscribe as I talk about that a lot on this channel. And go to mikeupland.com for all of my media in one place. Thank you so much for watching. This is Mike Upland, early retiree in 2024 at the age of 55. Take care and make the most of today.